Sarah Martinez had always known she was different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates dreamed of prom dresses and college parties, she spent her afternoons studying military history and practicing push-ups in her backyard. Her father, a Vietnam veteran, had filled their home with stories of honor, sacrifice, and service to country. Every morning she watched him polish his old army boots with the same reverence others reserved for prayer. When Sarah announced her intention to join the Navy at 17, the reaction was swift and brutal. Her mother cried for 3 days straight, begging her to reconsider. Her high school guidance counselor suggested she pursue nursing instead, claiming the military was no place for a young woman. Even her closest friends began treating her like she had lost her mind. But Sarah's resolve only strengthened with each obstacle. The day she left for basic training, half the town gathered at the bus station. Some came to wish her well, but others came to watch what they believed would be her inevitable failure. Old Mrs. Henderson from the grocery store shook her head sadly, muttering about girls who didn't know their place. Coach Williams, who had coached her in track, pulled her aside and warned her that the military would break her spirit and send her home broken. Boot camp at Great Lakes Naval Training Center was everything Sarah had expected and more. The physical demands pushed her body to its limits, but her mind remained focused. While other recruits complained about the early mornings and harsh treatment from drill instructors, Sarah embraced every challenge. She finished first in her physical fitness tests, earned the highest marks in weapons training, and showed natural leadership skills that caught the attention of her superiors. Her fellow recruits initially viewed her with suspicion. Many came from military families and had grown up believing that women belonged in support roles, not combat positions. Sarah proved them wrong through action rather than words. When Private Johnson twisted his ankle during a training exercise, Sarah carried him 2 miles back to base without complaint. When their barracks failed inspection 3 times in a row, she organized late-night cleaning sessions that brought their scores to perfect. The transformation was remarkable. The small-town girl who had been told she was too weak, too emotional, and too feminine for military service was becoming a formidable soldier. Her drill instructors, initially skeptical, began using her as an example for struggling recruits. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran, told her privately that she had the potential to go far in the Navy if she stayed focused and ignored the doubters. During her final week of boot camp, Sarah received a letter from home that changed everything. Her younger brother Danny wrote that their father had suffered a heart attack and was in the hospital. The doctors said he was stable, but Sarah knew she needed to see him. She requested emergency leave, which was granted immediately. The flight home felt endless. Sarah stared out the window, watching clouds drift past while worrying about her father and wondering what she would find when she returned to the town that had sent her away with such mixed feelings. She had changed during her months away, grown stronger and more confident, but she wondered if her hometown had changed at all. When she finally walked through the hospital doors in her crisp Navy uniform, the reaction was immediate and powerful. Nurses stopped their conversations to stare. Visitors turned their heads to follow her progress down the hallway. Some faces showed pride and admiration, but others displayed the same skepticism and disapproval she had faced before leaving. Her father's face lit up when she entered his room. Despite the tubes and monitors, his voice was strong when he spoke. He told her how proud he was, how she had honored their family name, and how he knew she was destined for great things. Those words meant more to Sarah than any medal or commendation she might ever receive. During her week-long visit, Sarah noticed the subtle changes in how people treated her. Some townspeople who had previously dismissed her now approached with curiosity and respect. They asked about her training, her future plans, and what military life was really like. But she also sensed an undercurrent of resentment from others who seemed almost disappointed that she had succeeded, rather than failed as they had predicted. The local newspaper interviewed her, running a front-page story about the hometown girl who had made good in the military. The article included quotes from her high school teachers and former classmates, most of whom now claimed they had always believed in her potential. Sarah smiled politely during the interview, but privately noted how quickly people rewrote history when it suited their narrative. On her last evening home, Sarah attended a community barbecue in the town square. She wore civilian clothes, hoping to blend in and enjoy a normal evening with old friends. Instead, she found herself the center of attention. fielding questions and enduring both praise and subtle criticism from people who had known her all her life. As the evening wound down, Sarah realized that her relationship with her hometown had fundamentally changed. She was no longer the girl who had left months earlier, full of dreams but untested by reality. She had proven herself in one of the most demanding environments in the world, and that achievement created both bridges and barriers with the people who had watched her grow up. The next morning, as she prepared to return to her new assignment, Sarah's father pulled her aside one final time. He handed her his old military challenge coin, worn smooth from years of handling. He told her that she was carrying forward a family tradition of service, but, more importantly, she was creating her own path and inspiring other young women to follow their dreams regardless of what others thought possible. Sarah's next assignment took her to Naval Station Norfolk, where she would serve as a communications specialist aboard the USS Constellation. The massive aircraft carrier represented everything she had dreamed about during those long nights, studying military history in her childhood bedroom. Standing on the dock looking up at the towering superstructure, she felt a mixture of excitement and determination that made her heart race. Life aboard the carrier was unlike anything she had experienced during basic training. The ship housed over 5,000 sailors, creating a floating city with its own complex social dynamics, unwritten rules, and hierarchies. Sarah quickly learned that proving herself in boot camp had been only the beginning of a much longer journey. Her supervisor, Chief Petty Officer Williams, was a gruff 25-year veteran who had served on 6 different ships during his career. He made it clear from day one that he would judge Sarah solely on her performance, not her gender, but that she would need to work twice as hard as her male counterparts to earn the same level of respect. Sarah welcomed the challenge, knowing that excellence was the only language that truly mattered in the military. The communications center operated around the clock, coordinating everything from routine supply deliveries to complex training exercises with allied nations. Sarah threw herself into learning every system, memorizing protocols and volunteering for additional duties whenever possible. She spent her off hours studying technical manuals and observing senior personnel to understand how decisions were made and problems were solved. Her dedication did not go unnoticed. Within 3 months, she had earned the respect of her immediate colleagues and the attention of senior officers who recognized her potential. Commander Patricia Hayes, one of only a handful of female officers in senior positions on the ship, began mentoring Sarah and encouraging her to consider advancing her career through specialized training programs. The opportunities Sarah had been waiting for came in the form of a posting on the ship's bulletin board. The Navy was accepting applications for special operations training, including the possibility of joining elite units that had previously been closed to women. The physical and mental requirements were extreme, and the failure rate was notoriously high, but successful candidates would join the most respected and capable forces in the military. Sarah studied the requirements carefully. The training would last over a year and would test every aspect of her physical fitness, mental toughness, and tactical knowledge. Even reaching the starting line would require passing a series of preliminary tests that eliminated most applicants before they ever began the actual program. But for Sarah, this represented the ultimate challenge and the chance to prove that women belonged in every aspect of military service. Her application process began with a comprehensive physical fitness test that pushed her body to its absolute limits. She had been preparing for months, running extra miles during her off-duty hours and working with the ship's fitness specialist to improve her strength and endurance. When test day arrived, she performed flawlessly, finishing in the top 10% of all applicants. The psychological evaluation was equally demanding. Military psychologists probed every aspect of her mental resilience, testing her ability to make decisions under extreme stress, work effectively in team environments, and maintain focus during prolonged periods of uncertainty and discomfort. Sarah drew on her experiences growing up in a skeptical small town and her months of proving herself aboard the carrier to demonstrate the mental toughness required for special operations. News of Sarah's application spread quickly through the ship. Reactions varied dramatically among her fellow sailors. Many expressed genuine admiration for her courage and determination, recognizing that she was attempting something few people would even consider. Others remained skeptical, believing that physical standards would inevitably be lowered to accommodate female participants. thereby diminishing the prestige and effectiveness of special operations units. Chief Williams called Sarah into his office after her preliminary results were announced. She had passed every test and earned a spot in the next training class. He looked at her seriously and explained that she was about to enter a world where failure was not just possible, but likely, where her every action would be scrutinized, and where she would face challenges that had broken seasoned veterans with years of experience. But he also told her something that surprised her. He admitted that when she first reported to his unit, he had expected her to request a transfer within 6 months, unable to handle the demands of carrier operations. Instead, she had become one of his most reliable and capable technicians. He respected her decision to pursue special operations training, even though he worried about the physical and emotional toll it would take. Sarah's final weeks aboard the Constellation were bittersweet. She had found her place within the ship's community and built relationships with colleagues who had become like family. Leaving meant starting over once again, proving herself to new instructors and fellow trainees who would judge her based on their own preconceptions about women in combat roles. The night before her departure, her communications team threw a farewell party in one of the ship's recreation areas. Sailors from different departments stopped by to wish her luck, many expressing pride that someone from their ship was attempting such an elite program. Commander Hayes presented her with a commemorative coin from the Constellation, telling her that she would always have a home aboard the ship regardless of what happened during her training. As Sarah packed her personal belongings, she reflected on how much her life had changed since leaving her small Texas hometown. She had proven herself capable of succeeding in environments that many people considered unsuitable for women. She had earned the respect of colleagues and superiors through hard work and dedication, rather than special treatment or lowered standards. But she also understood that her greatest challenges lay ahead. Special operations training would test her in ways that previous experiences had not prepared her for. She would face instructors who had spent their entire careers believing that certain roles should remain exclusively male. She would compete against candidates who had been dreaming of this opportunity since childhood, and who possessed years of specialized training and preparation. The morning of her departure, Sarah stood on the carrier's deck one final time, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in brilliant colors. She thought about her father, still recovering from his heart attack but following her career with immense pride. She thought about the townspeople who had doubted her abilities and the shipmates who had come to believe in her potential. Most importantly, she thought about the young women who might follow in her footsteps if she succeeded in proving that courage, determination, and skill mattered more than gender when serving their country. The Naval Special Warfare Training Center in Coronado, California, represented the pinnacle of military excellence. As Sarah's bus pulled through the gates, she could feel the weight of history and tradition surrounding her. This was where legends were born and dreams were either realized or shattered against the unforgiving rocks of impossibly high standards. Her training class consisted of 43 candidates, including herself and 2 other women. The men ranged in age from 19 to 35, representing every branch of the military and bringing diverse backgrounds from college athletics to previous combat deployments. Many had been preparing for this opportunity their entire adult lives, while others were career military personnel seeking the ultimate professional challenge. The first week focused on administrative processing, medical evaluations, and initial assessments that would establish baseline measurements for each candidate's progress. Sarah quickly realized that the other participants were evaluating her just as intensely as the instructors. Some displayed open hostility, making it clear they believed women had no place in special operations. Others maintained professional courtesy, while privately harboring doubts about her ability to complete the training. Instructor Chief Petty Officer Marcus Thompson had spent 15 years in special operations, participating in classified missions around the world. His reputation for breaking candidates who lacked the mental toughness required for elite units was legendary among military personnel. During the first formation, he looked directly at Sarah and announced that he would hold every candidate to identical standards, regardless of gender, background, or previous experience. The physical training began immediately and intensified with each passing day. Morning runs started at 4:30 and covered increasingly difficult terrain, from sandy beaches to rocky hills that tested every muscle in their bodies. Candidates who fell behind were immediately removed from the program, creating a constant atmosphere of competition and stress that separated those who merely wanted to be special operators from those who needed to be. Sarah's small-town upbringing proved to be an unexpected advantage during the psychological challenges that accompanied physical training. Growing up surrounded by people who doubted her abilities had taught her to ignore external negativity and focus on internal motivation. When instructors screamed in her face, questioning her commitment and predicting her failure, she drew on memories of similar treatment from townspeople who had underestimated her potential. The harassment from some fellow candidates was more difficult to handle than instructor pressure. Several men made crude comments about her presence, suggesting that she was receiving special treatment or that standards were being lowered to ensure her success. These accusations stung because Sarah knew they were completely false. But they also motivated her to excel in every measurable aspect of training. During the third week, the class faced their first major elimination event. Candidates were required to swim 2 miles in full combat gear, navigate an underwater obstacle course, and complete a series of land-based challenges while carrying equipment weighing over 60 pounds. The event lasted 14 hours and pushed everyone to their absolute physical and mental limits. Sarah finished 7th overall, ahead of more than half her male colleagues. Her performance silenced many critics and earned grudging respect from candidates who had previously dismissed her capabilities. But it also intensified scrutiny from instructors, who expected her to maintain that level of excellence throughout the remaining months of training. The curriculum expanded beyond physical challenges to include weapons training, tactical planning, and specialized skills that special operations personnel needed to master. Sarah discovered she had a natural aptitude for marksmanship, consistently scoring among the top performers during rifle and pistol qualifications. Her communications background from the carrier proved invaluable during exercises that required coordinating complex operations across multiple teams. As weeks turned to months, the class size steadily decreased. Candidates withdrew due to injuries, academic failures, or simply the crushing realization that they lacked the mental fortitude required to continue. Sarah watched good people make the difficult decision to quit, knowing that their choice required courage even if it disappointed instructors and family members who had supported their efforts. The most challenging period came during survival training, when candidates were dropped in remote wilderness areas with minimal equipment and required to evade capture while completing specific mission objectives. Sarah spent 5 days moving through desert terrain, rationing water, and avoiding instructor teams whose job was to track down and capture struggling candidates. On the 4th night, exhausted and dehydrated, she was discovered by an instructor team and subjected to interrogation training designed to simulate enemy capture. The psychological pressure was intense, with instructors using every technique short of physical abuse to break her concentration and extract information she was trained to protect. Sarah endured 8 hours of questioning, maintaining her cover story and protecting classified details despite extreme fatigue and stress. Her successful completion of survival training marked a turning point in how colleagues and instructors viewed her capabilities. Chief Thompson, who had maintained professional distance throughout the program, privately acknowledged that she possessed the mental toughness required for special operations. Other candidates who had initially resented her presence began treating her as an equal member of the team. The final months of training focused on advanced tactics, specialized weapon systems, and complex mission planning that would prepare successful candidates for operational assignments. Sarah continued performing at the highest levels, earning leadership positions during group exercises and demonstrating the judgment required to make life or death decisions. Under extreme pressure, during a particularly challenging exercise involving hostage rescue scenarios, Sarah's team was assigned to assault a fortified building and extract friendly personnel while avoiding civilian casualties. Her tactical planning and leadership during the mission execution impressed evaluators and demonstrated that she possessed not just individual skills but the ability to coordinate team efforts effectively. And as graduation approached, only 18 candidates remained from the original class of 43. Sarah had not only survived but thrived in an environment designed to eliminate all but the most exceptional individuals. She had proven that gender was irrelevant when measuring courage, intelligence, and determination to serve at the highest levels of military excellence. The night before graduation, Chief Thompson approached Sarah privately and told her something that would stay with her forever. He explained that he had initially opposed allowing women into special operations training, believing that physical limitations would create safety risks for entire teams. But watching her performance had changed his perspective completely. She had earned her place through merit alone, and he was proud to recommend her for operational assignment. As Sarah prepared for the graduation ceremony that would officially designate her as a Special Operations Qualified Sailor, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a small Texas town where people doubted her dreams to the most elite military training in the world, she had consistently proven that limitations existed only in the minds of those who accepted them. Graduation day at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center was everything Sarah had imagined and more. Family members traveled from across the country to witness their loved ones receive the coveted Special Operations designation that fewer than 1% of military personnel ever earned. Sarah's parents made the journey from Texas, her father still recovering from his heart attack, but determined not to miss this historic moment. The ceremony took place on the training center's parade ground, with 18 newly qualified special operators standing at attention, while senior officers delivered speeches about honor, sacrifice, and the responsibilities that came with elite status. When Sarah's name was called and she stepped forward to receive her certificate and insignia, the applause from spectators and fellow graduates created a moment she would treasure forever. Her father's pride was unmistakable as he watched his daughter become one of the first women to complete the program successfully. During the reception that followed, he was approached by other parents who expressed amazement at Sarah's achievement and asked about the challenges she had overcome. He spoke quietly about the doubters they had encountered in their hometown and the determination that had driven Sarah to exceed every expectation. Sarah's first operational assignment took her to Naval Amphibious Base Little Creek in Virginia, where she joined a special operations team preparing for deployment to Southeast Asia. The team leader, Lieutenant Commander James Mitchell, was a decorated veteran with 12 years of special operations experience who had initially been skeptical about integrating women into combat units. However, Mitchell had reviewed Sarah's training records and spoken with her instructors before her arrival. He understood that she had earned her position through merit alone and was prepared to evaluate her performance based on operational effectiveness, rather than preconceived notions about gender limitations. He made it clear to the entire team that Sarah would receive the same treatment as any new team member. The integration process was smoother than Sarah had anticipated. Her new teammates were professional operators who recognized competence when they saw it. Her training scores and instructor recommendations had preceded her arrival, creating a foundation of respect that she built upon through consistent performance during training exercises and mission preparation. The team spent 6 months preparing for their deployment, conducting exercises that simulated the environmental and tactical challenges they would face overseas. Sarah's communications expertise proved invaluable during complex operations that required coordinating with multiple agencies and international partners. Her marksmanship skills and tactical knowledge complemented the diverse capabilities that each team member brought to their collective mission. During a training exercise in the mountains of North Carolina, Sarah's team was tasked with infiltrating a simulated enemy compound and extracting high-value intelligence without alerting security forces. The mission required moving through difficult terrain at night, bypassing electronic surveillance systems, and completing their objectives within a narrow time window. Sarah was assigned as the team's communications specialist and secondary marksman, responsible for maintaining contact with command elements while providing overwatch during the extraction phase. The exercise tested every skill she had developed during her training, from physical endurance to tactical decision-making under pressure. When the team encountered unexpected complications that required modifying their original plan, Sarah's input during the hasty planning session demonstrated her ability to think critically and contribute meaningfully to tactical problem-solving. Her suggestions for alternative communication protocols helped ensure mission success when primary systems failed due to enemy countermeasures. The successful completion of the exercise earned praise from evaluators and further solidified Sarah's position within the team. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell noted in his assessment that she had performed flawlessly under conditions that challenged experienced operators, demonstrating the readiness for operational deployment. that the team required. News of Sarah's success reached her hometown through social media posts and local news coverage of her special operations qualification. The reaction was mixed, reflecting the same divisions that had existed when she first announced her military aspirations. Supporters expressed pride in her achievements and admiration for her perseverance in breaking barriers that had prevented other women from pursuing similar opportunities. However, a vocal minority continued to criticize her career choices, arguing that women belonged in traditional roles rather than combat positions. Some questioned whether standards had been lowered to accommodate female participants, despite clear evidence that Sarah had met identical requirements as her male colleagues. These critics seemed more interested in preserving their preconceptions than acknowledging documented achievements. The controversy intensified when Sarah was featured in a national magazine article about women in special operations. The story detailed her journey from small-town dreams to elite military status, including quotes from instructors and teammates who praised her capabilities and professionalism. The article was intended to inspire other young women to pursue their goals, regardless of traditional limitations, but the positive coverage also attracted negative attention from people who felt threatened by challenges to conventional gender roles. Online harassment increased significantly after the article's publication, with anonymous critics questioning everything from her physical capabilities to her motivations for joining the military. The attacks were personal and often crude, designed to discourage her from continuing her career. Sarah's response to the criticism demonstrated the mental toughness that had carried her through special operations training. She ignored the noise and focused on her professional responsibilities, understanding that her performance would speak louder than any response to uninformed critics. Her teammates and superiors noticed her grace under pressure and respected her decision to let actions speak for themselves. As deployment approached, Sarah's team conducted final training exercises and equipment checks that would prepare them for months of operations in challenging environments. The camaraderie that had developed between team members created confidence that they could handle whatever situations they encountered while serving their country overseas. The night before departure, Sarah received a phone call from her father that would stay with her throughout the deployment. He told her that regardless of what critics said or what challenges she faced, she had already proven everything that mattered. She had earned her place through excellence and dedication, and nothing could diminish that achievement. He also shared news from their hometown that surprised her. Several young women had approached him to ask about military careers, inspired by Sarah's example to consider opportunities they had never thought possible. Her success was creating ripple effects that extended far beyond her personal achievements, opening doors for others who possessed similar dreams but had lacked visible role models. As Sarah boarded the transport aircraft that would take her team to their operational area, she carried with her the lessons learned from every challenge she had overcome. From the skeptical townspeople who had doubted her potential to the instructors who had tested her limits, each experience had contributed to the mental strength and professional competence that now defined her as a special operations professional. The deployment would bring new challenges and opportunities to prove herself in operational environments, where lives depended on split-second decisions and flawless execution. But Sarah felt prepared for whatever lay ahead, knowing that her journey had equipped her with the skills and confidence needed to excel at the highest levels of military service. The deployment to Southeast Asia tested Sarah's abilities in ways that no training exercise could fully simulate. Operating from a forward base in a region where tensions ran high and threats could emerge without warning, her team conducted missions that required split-second decision-making and flawless execution under life-or-death pressure. During her first month overseas, Sarah participated in 12 operations ranging from intelligence gathering to direct action missions against high-value targets. Her performance consistently met the exacting standards that special operations demanded, earning respect from colleagues who had initially questioned whether women possessed the physical and mental capabilities required for combat roles. The breakthrough moment came during a hostage rescue mission that had gone wrong. Intelligence reports indicated that 3 aid workers were being held in a remote compound by a terrorist group planning to execute them within hours. Sarah's team was tasked with infiltrating the facility, neutralizing the threats, and extracting the hostages before the deadline expired. The mission began smoothly, with the team successfully penetrating the compound's outer defenses and moving toward the building where intelligence suggested the hostages were being held. But as they approached their objective, they encountered unexpected resistance from guards who had apparently been alerted to their presence through unknown means. Sarah was positioned as Overwatch, responsible for providing covering fire, while her teammates moved to secure the hostages. When the team leader was wounded during the initial engagement, she found herself temporarily in command of the rescue operation with 3 lives hanging in the balance and enemy reinforcements approaching their position. Drawing on her training and natural leadership abilities, Sarah quickly assessed the tactical situation and modified their approach to account for changed circumstances. She directed 2 team members to establish defensive positions while she and another operator moved to secure the hostages, using her communications expertise to coordinate with supporting aircraft and ground units. The building interior was a maze of corridors and rooms that provided numerous hiding places for defenders and potential death traps for rescuers. Sarah moved methodically through the structure, using advanced tactics and equipment to locate both hostages and threats while maintaining communication with her team members and command elements. She found the 3 aid workers in a basement room, terrified but unharmed, with 2 guards who surrendered immediately when confronted by special operations personnel. But extracting the hostages required moving through areas where enemy fighters had established ambush positions, creating a deadly puzzle that demanded both tactical brilliance and physical courage to solve. Sarah's solution involved using smoke grenades and diversionary tactics to confuse the defenders, while her team moved the hostages through alternative routes she had identified during their approach. The plan required precise timing and coordination, with each team member performing specific roles that would either ensure success or result in catastrophic failure. The extraction succeeded flawlessly, with all 3 hostages evacuated safely and no additional casualties among Sarah's team. The wounded team leader was stabilized and evacuated to a medical facility, while Sarah maintained operational command until replacement personnel arrived. Her leadership during the crisis earned commendations from senior officers and cemented her reputation as an exceptional operator. News of the successful mission reached the United States through official channels and media coverage that highlighted the role of Special Operations Forces in protecting American citizens overseas. Sarah's part in the rescue was mentioned in briefings to senior government officials and military leaders who were evaluating the integration of women into combat roles. But the positive coverage also reignited controversy among critics who continued to oppose women in special operations. Some argued that her success was an anomaly that proved nothing about the broader capabilities of female personnel in combat situations. Others suggested that media attention was disproportionate compared to similar achievements by male operators who received less publicity. The criticism reached Sarah through letters and social media messages that arrived despite her remote deployment location. Some contained personal attacks questioning her motivations and character, while others made crude references to her gender that revealed more about the writers than about her professional capabilities. Sarah's response demonstrated the emotional maturity and professional focus that had characterized her entire military career. She understood that breaking barriers inevitably attracted both support and opposition, and that her responsibility was to maintain the highest standards of performance. Regardless of external noise, her teammates noticed how she handled the pressure and drew their own conclusions about her character and capabilities. Senior Petty Officer Rodriguez, who had initially harbored doubts about women in special operations, told Sarah privately that her conduct during the hostage rescue had changed his perspective completely. The remainder of Sarah's deployment included additional missions that further demonstrated her value as a special operations professional. She participated in training exercises with Allied forces, led reconnaissance missions in hostile territory, and contributed to intelligence-gathering operations that informed strategic decision-making at the highest levels of government. During a particularly challenging mission involving the capture of a terrorist leader who had been planning attacks against American interests, Sarah's technical expertise proved crucial in overcoming electronic countermeasures that threatened to compromise the entire operation. Her ability to adapt communications protocols under pressure enabled the team to complete their mission despite sophisticated enemy attempts at interference. As her deployment neared its conclusion, Sarah reflected on the experiences that had tested every aspect of her training and character. She had proven to herself and others that gender was irrelevant when measuring the qualities that defined exceptional special operations personnel. Courage, intelligence, adaptability, and unwavering commitment to mission success. The homecoming reception was overwhelming, with family members, fellow service personnel, and community supporters gathering to welcome the team back from their successful deployment. Sarah's parents traveled from Texas once again, this time accompanied by several young women from their hometown who wanted to meet the person who had inspired them to consider military careers. During the informal gathering that followed the official ceremony, Sarah was approached by a representative from the Naval Special Warfare Command, who informed her about an opportunity that would define the next phase of her career. The Navy was establishing a new program designed to integrate the lessons learned from women's participation in special operations, and they wanted her to play a leadership role in developing training standards and operational procedures. The assignment would require returning to the training center, where her special operations career had begun, but this time as an instructor responsible for preparing the next generation of elite personnel. It represented recognition of her achievements and confidence in her ability to shape the future of special operations forces. As Sarah considered the opportunity, she thought about the young women who had approached her during the homecoming ceremony. They represented the same dreams and determination that had driven her own journey from a small Texas town to the pinnacle of military excellence. Helping them achieve their goals would be just as rewarding as any mission she had completed overseas. 3 years after returning from her deployment, Sarah had established herself as one of the most respected instructors at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center. Her new role involved developing curriculum, evaluating candidates, and serving as a mentor for the increasing number of women who were attempting to earn special operations qualifications. The decision to return home to Texas for a brief vacation seemed natural after months of intensive training schedules and operational responsibilities. Sarah looked forward to spending time with her family and reconnecting with the community that had watched her journey from skeptical teenager to accomplished military professional. But her homecoming would be unlike anything she had experienced before. News of her visit had spread through social media and local networks, attracting attention from both supporters and critics who had followed her career with intense interest. The small town that had once doubted her potential was now divided between those who celebrated her achievements and others who remained threatened by her success. The controversy reached its peak during the annual 4th of July celebration, when Sarah was invited to serve as the Grand Marshal for the town's patriotic parade. The invitation came from the mayor and city council, who recognized her as a hometown hero whose accomplishments reflected positively on their community. However, a vocal minority organized opposition to her participation, arguing that her prominence promoted values that conflicted with their traditional beliefs about appropriate roles for women. The protest group included some of the same people who had criticized her military aspirations years earlier, now emboldened by national political rhetoric that questioned women's participation in combat roles. The evening before the parade, Sarah attended a community barbecue where tensions between supporting and opposing factions became impossible to ignore. Conversations that began pleasantly often deteriorated into heated arguments about gender roles, military policies, and the changing nature of American society. During the event, Sarah noticed a group of protesters gathering near the edge of the park where the barbecue was being held. They carried signs questioning her qualifications and suggesting that media attention had inflated her accomplishments beyond what they actually represented. Some signs contained crude references to her gender that revealed the true motivations behind their opposition. As the evening progressed, the situation became increasingly uncomfortable. Sarah's presence seemed to serve as a catalyst for broader disagreements about social changes that extended far beyond her personal achievements. She began to consider leaving early to avoid escalating tensions that might overshadow the patriotic celebration, but the decision was made for her when the protest group surrounded the pavilion where she was sitting with family members and began chanting slogans that questioned her right to serve as Grand Marshal. Their behavior attracted the attention of other attendees, creating a confrontation that local police were called to manage. In the chaos that followed, someone threw Sarah's old high school letter jacket into a burning trash barrel, where flames quickly consumed the fabric and memories it represented. The symbolic destruction was captured on cell phone cameras and broadcast through social media within minutes, creating a viral moment that attracted national attention. The imagery was powerful and disturbing, a decorated special operations veteran watching her past literally burn, while protesters celebrated the destruction of symbols representing her youth and dreams. The incident crystallized broader debates about women in military service and the resistance that female personnel continued to face despite their proven capabilities. Sarah's response to the incident demonstrated the composure and strength that had carried her through special operations training and combat deployments. Rather than engaging with the protesters or responding to their provocations, she quietly left the event with her family and spent the evening reflecting on the experience. The national media coverage that followed was extensive and largely supportive, with news outlets contrasting the protesters' behavior with Sarah's documented achievements and professional conduct. Military leaders issued statements defending her service record and condemning the harassment she had endured from people who should have celebrated her contributions. But Sarah understood that symbolic victories in media coverage were less important than substantive changes in attitudes and opportunities. The incident had revealed persistent opposition to women's advancement in traditionally male-dominated fields. But it had also demonstrated the progress that had been made in creating support networks for female service members. The morning of the parade brought a surprise that no one had anticipated. Hundreds of current and former military personnel from around the region had traveled to Sarah's hometown overnight, organizing through social media and veterans networks to show support for one of their own. They gathered at dawn wearing their dress uniforms, medals and insignia that represented decades of collective service to their country. The group included men and women from every branch of the military, ranging from recent recruits to retired senior officers who had served during multiple conflicts. When Sarah arrived at the parade staging area, she was overwhelmed by the sight of fellow service members who had sacrificed their holiday weekend to demonstrate solidarity with her and the principles she represented. The message was clear. Attacks on one service member were attacks on all who had sworn to defend their nation. The parade itself became a powerful demonstration of respect for military service and recognition of the contributions made by all who wear the uniform. Sarah rode in a convertible surrounded by honor guards from multiple service branches, while the protesters from the previous evening were vastly outnumbered by supporters who lined the parade route. During the ceremony that followed the parade, Sarah was asked to address the crowd gathered in the town square. Her speech was brief but memorable, focusing on the importance of service above self and the responsibility of all Americans to support those who volunteer to defend their freedoms regardless of gender, race, or background. She spoke about the young women who had approached her throughout her career, seeking advice about pursuing their own military aspirations. She emphasized that breaking barriers required not just individual achievement but collective commitment to expanding opportunities for everyone who possessed the courage and capability to serve. The response to her remarks was overwhelmingly positive, with sustained applause from an audience that included many people who had initially doubted her potential but had come to respect her accomplishments. The transformation in public opinion was not complete or universal, but it represented significant progress from the skepticism she had faced years earlier. As the celebration concluded, and the visiting service members prepared to return to their homes and duty stations, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The burning of her letter jacket had been intended as an insult and rejection, but it had instead become a catalyst for demonstrating the strength and unity of the military community. Walking through her hometown that evening, still wearing her dress blue uniform with its array of ribbons and insignia, Sarah encountered people who stopped to thank her for her service and express pride in her achievements. The same streets where she had once been viewed with suspicion now welcomed her as a proven hero whose success had elevated their entire community. The incident had taught her an important lesson about leadership and resilience. True strength was not measured by the absence of opposition, but by the ability to persevere in the face of adversity, while maintaining the values and principles that defined her character. She had returned home wearing the uniform of an elite warrior, carrying with her the respect of fellow professionals and the gratitude of a nation she had sworn to protect.